welcome. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. We're so excited to have you guys here with us tonight. My name is Chris Campbell. I work for Birmingham Civil Rights Outreach. I am the BFAST Help C coordinator. This year for Black History Month at Birmingham Civil Rights Outreach, we decided we wanted to do something different. I've always been involved in book clubs, but this year I wanted us to do something different and have a movie club discussion, if you will. We're so very excited. Just a little background about BAO. We have several different programs. The hub of it all is HIV prevention and case management, where we do all of the things HIV related at BAO. You can come see us and get tested. We have case managers, social workers doing awesome work at BAO. Also, we have the Magic City Wellness Center, where we are the primary care for the LGBTQ community and allies. You can come and get your primary care done at the Wellness Center. We have a brand new, beautiful building that you guys can come and see your doctors, your nurse practitioners, all of those wonderful people. Also, we have the Magic City Acceptance Center. This is for our youth. It is a safe space for youth. If anyone is looking for a safe space, please hit up the Magic City Acceptance Center. They are all over social media, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. Find them at the Magic City Acceptance Center. Coming up very soon is the Magic City Acceptance Academy. It's a public charter school for grades 6 through 12. We are now in the process of doing enrollment. It is open enrollment right now, so please take advantage of that. mcaa-bao.org for anyone that is interested in that. Now, I want to introduce the lovely, wonderful panelists that will be discussing this film with me tonight. First up, she is the LGBTQ legal attorney. She works at BAO. Her name is Sydney Duncan. We have her as well. Hi, Sydney.
Hi, how's it going?
I am so excited, so happy that you're here with us tonight. This next person, she is also from the legal department of BAO. Her name is Katrina D. Brown, Esquire.
Hello, good people. My niece is here too, so if you hear noise, I apologize.
So happy to have you here, Katrina. He is from the BAO BFAD nutrition program. He is the nutrition specialist. We have Joshua Glenn with us tonight.
Oh, hey everyone, so happy to be here. I am excited
to have you, Joshua. We also have a case manager with us. She is a BSW at BAO. Tiffany Pullum is here.
Hi, everyone.
This next person is the conversation alchemist extraordinaire. I can't say anything else about her. Give it up for T. Marie King. And last but not least, she is the technical guru behind tonight's broadcast. She is the Sidewalk LGBTQ liaison, Gina Malisham.
Good evening. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you all for joining us tonight. So, C. Marie came up with a great theme for this, exploring Blackness through film. This is something that is awesome, and we are partnering tonight with the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. So they're in the building. Thank you guys for everything that you've done. We are excited to be putting this on with you guys for Black History Month. Let's just delve right into it, guys. The movie is The Women of Brewster Place. Okay, so I'm going to give a little background about the movie. So I've seen this movie several times. I've never taken notes on it. It's just been embedded in my brain, but I took notes on it, which was weird, because I caught some stuff that I didn't think about before. But The Women of Brewster Place is set in an Asian housing project. It explores the lives of 7 vulnerable yet resilient Black women. Out of the diversity of their dreams and complexity of their lives emerges a portrait of shared struggle and hope in a place that is both a prison and a home. Now, this miniseries was broadcast on March 19th and 20th, 1989. I'm not going to tell you how old I was then, but I was alive. 1989. The miniseries is based upon the critically acclaimed 1982 novel of the same name by Gloria Naylor. It was produced by none other than Oprah Winfrey's Harpo Productions. There are a lot of A-listers in this movie. We have Cicely Tyson, Oprah Winfrey, Jackie Harry, Robin Givens, Lynn Whitfield, Paul Kelly, Olivia Cole, Paul Winfield, Mary Alice, and the list goes on and on. So excited. Let's jump right into it, guys. The movie starts out with Mattie, who is played by Oprah Winfrey. Okay. So Mattie is getting out of the car. She has a suitcase and a flower. She is greeted by the mechanic, or the what's the word I'm looking for? Y'all help me out here. He's the super,
The janitor, custodian.
Yeah.
Handyman.
So she's greeted by him. He escorts her inside. She goes there. She stands there, and we go back to when Mattie was a teenager. Y'all, talk to me about. I want to ask Gina. Talk to me about how you felt about Mattie in the beginning, as she said, "Here, chick, 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 chicky. Here, chick,
Yeah.
chick, chicky."
I mean, I could go on and on about how I feel about Mattie's character. I do get in my feels a little bit about how we represent Black women, even as late as in 1989. But she was presented as someone who really enjoyed her life exactly the way that it was. Like she was truly living her best life in its golden place on the farm before, all of the stress of her life hit her.
Katrina, what are your thoughts on Mattie in the beginning of the movie?
So let me just say, like, before we even get to the chicky chick situation, when that lady starts off and she's singing that humming at the very beginning, I'm already crying. Like, even as a little girl, that hum, and I don't even know what the name of this hum is. It always got me very emotional. I don't know what it is. You could just hear the struggle in the theme song throughout the whole movie, because they play it every time something dramatic happens. I agree with Gina. I think that sometimes we will look at a situation and say, well, they were poor. She was on this farm. There's nothing to do. But, she looked like she was enjoying her own life. Like she was happy and content with her parents and being sheltered and all these other things, or as happy as one could be, I guess, given the time. But just the way it starts off, and then when you introduce the young man who kind of swoons her or whatever, right? I think for me, seeing that dialogue between them, because what they were trying to paint was this picture of this young lady who had been churched and held captive by her parents, so to speak, not exposed to the world, is being this city slicker comes in and just swindles her out of her virginity. And so when you look at it from that perspective from the very beginning, there's almost a critique on sexuality, if that makes sense. So that's kind of what I got, or how I feel about it, looking at it as an adult now.
T. Marie, or anyone else, if you guys have thoughts.
Sure. I mean, first, when I look back at it, I was 9 years old watching this movie. Like, I remember watching it back in 89 and really just being engrossed in it. But what I like about it is that it shows that everybody has a beginning. Everybody has a origin story. And I think that's what's so beautiful. As you get deeper into the film, you see all these women that have come together, but they all came from somewhere.
Right.
And so I loved how it showed, this is kind of how she began, and we're going to see it play out. But I love that it set that up and let us know where she was coming from.
Yeah. So Mattie, I feel like she was charmed by Butch. Butch was a charming guy. She was hesitant. She didn't want to go get this sugar cane, but the man, they kept talking about. Did you guys notice how they kept talking about light skin, dark skin?
Oh,
They
yeah.
kept saying that all in the movie.
Absolutely.
And that's still a thing today. Light skin, dark skin, brown skin. That's just colorism within our own race. And I don't think we'll ever go anywhere, because it's just always been there. But even I guess I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but Bush was a light skin, red. He called himself red. He was always just charming the women off, charming them and moving on. That's what he told her. Laying there, he said, "Hey, this is what I do. So, but I guess those lips were scrumptious. I don't know, because she just couldn't she couldn't say no, baby.
Yeah.
She just
But
kept
I
going.
mean, it's a sad note, but I also, like Katrina, I watched this for the first time as a child. And then, to watch it again recently, just not even in just preparing for this, but in celebrating Black history, I realized a lot of the scenes of sexuality, intimacy, forced or with consent, were omitted. One, because, you weren't allowed to show these things. And also because they left something to the imagination. And watching it a second time, I thought, was this a consensual conception? Was Basil born from love or force? Because they don't show us that. They show us, Mattie pushing him away, saying no, and him being very forceful. And then next thing you know, she's pregnant, and they don't really give you any idea as to whether or not she was even in love with him, or if this was something that was forced on her.
That's a good point, Gina. That is a good point. So when she pushes him off of her, pushes his hand away, I immediately think that, but I don't know. Maybe they were trying to make us feel a certain kind of way. I don't know, Sydney or Tiffany or Josh, how do y'all feel about that? Because I don't know if it was.
Yeah, I don't know if it was trying to make us think that it was coerced. It was definitely coerced. Like, he definitely coerced her, but I don't know if it was forced, just for the simple fact that she later protected him from her father by never saying who he was. But it also showed with her characterization there and kind of developing her character, she really didn't start living until she moved away from home. Her dad really, they talk about it when she's having an argument with her dad before he attacks her. And she's talking about these things that he's saying, I just did the best that I could to protect you, and, making other people think that I'm trying to say that you're better than they are. But she really didn't start to live, and you see that until she left Tennessee.
Let's talk a little bit about, and I don't want to go exactly bit by bit, but let's talk a little bit about how the dad's reaction, her father's reaction was to it. So I feel like he was okay knowing that he thought, or when he thought that she was impregnated by someone else. He was ready to have her get married, and, I'm going to go over there, we're going to talk this out, and blah, 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 blah. But when he finds out that it was Butch, that's when he really turned the table. So
he never found out that it was Butch. That's why he beat her. She wouldn't tell him
why
who it was.
Do you think so? Well, why do you think he had that reaction?
Well, I disagree with Joshua on this point. I think the reason because she allowed herself to be beaten to protect her daddy, not Butch. Because the conversation that she has with her mom is, don't tell him that it's Butch. And her mom says, well, do you think I want my husband in jail? And so the silence was not about Butch. The silence was about her daddy not going to kill Butch, in my opinion, and going to jail. And so he beats her while she's trying to protect him. I mean, it's just the whole situation.
It is a whole situation. And someone, I don't know, can you guys, anyone speak to the Black fathers and how protective they are of their Black daughters? I can speak from personal experience. My sister had my nephew at a very young age. I was 6. My sister was 17, and she's pregnant. My dad did not take that kindly. I don't know if that is a racial thing or if it's what do you guys think? Do you think that is a racial thing, or what do you think?
I don't know if it's racial. So we had, my aunt and uncle had this, when my dad was a kid, he had this thing play out in front of him. My aunt and uncle came to my grandfather and basically said, at a very, very, very young age, you're pregnant. And my grandfather tried to beat my future uncles, tried to beat them up. So I'm not sure that this is a racial thing. It might be a generational thing.
Or maybe even a Southern thing.
Or maybe a Southern
thing. They
thing.
were in the South.
They were.
That's my thought. I think it's a Southern thing. It's about the image of the family, and you're really kind of shaming the family once you, as a child, get pregnant and you yourself are having a child, because we are really big on status in the South.
Well, again, I had an amazing father. He was not perfect,
Mhm.
but he just was not like that. Whatever was being displayed, my daddy was not like that. My daddy was loving and kind and courteous, and the type of person, had I been someone who got pregnant at a young age, no, I don't think for 1 second he would have beat me to death or threatened me or anything like that. Like, we just did not have a household. I was not raised like that. My parents were the type of parents where you could actually go and talk about your mistakes and there be a real conversation. So for me, when I saw it, it just triggered something in me. There's this image that fathers are just so hardcore, especially Black fathers, and they are, because my dad was hardcore in other areas like education. But when it came to protecting us and loving us, we received the love in full force. So.
Well, I think you're very blessed and fortunate because a lot of people can't say that.
I think it was also interesting the view of Maddie's mom when they're sitting there at the table before she goes out to talk to her dad, when she's talking about, like, there's nothing to be ashamed of, like the shame has already happened and you've been forgiven. I felt like that was, like, looking back, I watched this when I was, like, I think 14, 15 for the first time. So watching it again, it was kind of like, that's a very kind of modern approach for the time period that was supposed to be set in, because you're supposed to be like in the 40s. I was like, that was a very modern kind of thought process that the mother went through to get to that point where she's like, the baby's a blessing. Like, you have nothing to be ashamed of. Like, that's already moved past. You know, it was kind of interesting to see that duality, because a lot of times it's the mother, especially, like I can say in my household, it's the mother who holds on to that shame of what are people going to think, that kind of thing.
Y'all, can we talk about, I don't know, I may have been the only one that caught this, but that suitcase. She had that suitcase. I'm like, is that all she got? Was that just the movie? Because when she left her parents' house waiting on that Greyhound, she had that suitcase. When she showed up at walking down the street, she had that suitcase. When she showed up at Brewster's place, she had that suitcase. I said, this suitcase, baby, is holding all of her things, I guess. If I moved that often, girl, I would have a moving company. That's just me. That's neither here nor there. All right, so moving on to Maddie's left her parents' house, and she's walking down the street trying to. Well, I'm jumping. She goes to this boarding house, okay, and there's a rat that gets to Basil. Okay, do you guys know why she named her son Basil? Did y'all catch that?
The herb garden. That's where he was conceived.
Yes. So she leaves there because of the rat. She's like, no, ma'am, I'm over that. Did you catch how she's walking down the street and she comes to this one home where the sign is obviously they have a vacancy, and the lady's like, sorry, I meant to take the sign down. Speak to how that is still happening today. Today in 2021. Can somebody speak on that?
I'll let somebody else talk about. I've been doing a lot of.
Go ahead. No, talk. Go.
I was just gonna say, I think in doing housing law for a period of time, you see that a lot. You see that in the standard. You just look at it as it relates to the rates. You know, people buying homes. You literally can be living next to a white neighbor and have the same credit, the same amount of money. I mean, all things being equal, and still end up paying more than that person. The same is true as it relates to renting apartments. We see that a lot in the type of work that we do. The quality and the sincerity, or just a pure belief that this person is being genuine and they're not going to come. I think it had more so to do also with race and the fact that she was carrying a newborn baby, because some people just don't want to be bothered with that. But I think when you look at the way that we do have laws in place that are supposed to help with discrimination, the problem is, how are they being perpetrated in the masses, right? How are they being used? How are people enforcing them? And I think that end is the question, is the enforcement of that. And the fact that people are still saying things, maybe not as blunt as this lady was, but they're denying you based on the fact that your credit score is a little bit, maybe a point lower, or they're raising the rate so high that you don't even have a chance to have access to it.
Right.
You know, I think in society, we still continue to other people. You know, that's just a natural practice, whether you're over the housing authority or whether you're just in a neighborhood. You know, people have their idea of what their existence or their community should look like. And so when you look like something completely opposite to what I define my life as, you other people, you know, and I think we see that so much because it's easy to say, oh, well, that's not our caliber or they don't belong here, you know, and people will try to dress it up and say, oh, it's about the money or it's about this or that. But a lot of times it's as basic as our skin color or who we love or, you know, how we choose to carry our lives. You know, it's easy to other people.
Very true.
I think that another reason, I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, go see.
I think another reason that she was discriminated against, in addition to the fact that she was, she had that young child on her hip, as to say, but she also was a single parent. So I noticed that. I thought that that was definitely a reason, and it may have been a concern of can she even make the payments because there's no man with her.
And it's funny you bring that up, Tiffany, because that seemed to be a theme throughout the entire movie about needing a man to make you whole, needing a man, get that child a father. You need to get that child a father. And, you know, one of the things that I've grown to realize is that a man can be in the house. That doesn't mean that the child is being parented. Like,
That's right.
A body, a cold, well, not a cold body, but having a warm body in the house that is of male gender does not mean that that child is being fathered.
Right.
And even though the grandmother did it to Mattie, when she got older, she started doing the Ciel. She was telling Ciel, you need to get you a husband. You got to get you a husband. Not you need to feel good about yourself. Not you need to, you know, work on you and love you. Everything was about you need a man to live. You need a man to survive.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Katrina, because we spent a lot of time, and we still do. I'm going to go on out there and say that we still enforce that on women and men to find another person to parent with them. And oftentimes that might mean having someone in the house because they need to be, even though they don't. That's leaving a bad impression on your child. And sometimes that absence, while that can leave a bad impression, I grew up in a single parent household. And when I look back on how my mother had the option of not doing that, but she chose to, raise me in an atmosphere where she could be absolutely sure that the only parental influence was hers and no negative influence, I think I came out better than if I had that additional parent in the house that was not doing any good to my psyche or to my nature or my culture.
Right. Speaking of needing a man, I completely skipped over a character. Can we talk about, so this actress will always be Sandra to me. but I know she's not Sandra. I know she's not Sandra, but she will always be Sandra to me. So I skipped over Etta Mae, okay, because Mattie had a relationship with Etta Mae all her life, you know, and we see Etta Mae before she even makes it down that street with Basil. So speaking of needing a man, that's the theme for Etta Mae. This whole movie is needing a man. I mean, she refused to live by the rules. She just thought she needed a man. You know, somebody talk to that because I don't know what it feels like to feel like you need a man.
I think it's messaging. I think it's the messaging that we get, you know, when you go back through the generations and you think about when you put in context what our mothers were dealing with in their various times and then grandmother and then further back, you know, that was a lot of the messaging that was taught. Like you need a man to handle these things. You need a man to be in the house or whatever the story was, you know, so that you go on and you adopt those messages and thinking, I'm not fully who I need to be, or I have to have this in my life. And I think the unfortunate part is you see a lot of women staying in relationships that are so extremely toxic and unhealthy, but it continues that cycle, you know, so the children that they have, you know, they grow up thinking I have to have this around me, you know, which is so unfortunate. But I think it's messaging that's passed down.
Right.
Yeah, it definitely becomes a generational kind of curse, if you want to call it that, because you see mom doing it or see dad doing it because it can go both ways. But you see your parents doing that and you just repeat the cycle because you're like, well, I've got to have this in my life. Something that I found really interesting with Etta Mae watching it back this time was the use of color with her in like her character. Every time you see her, she's very brightly dressed, especially as opposed to the character of Mattie, who, as the movie progresses, kind of gets more bland in colors, like more grays and dark in color. They always kept her bright, which was kind of interesting.
Right. I think too, going back to what T. Marie said about this messaging and what's being passed down, and the need, I felt like they used the color to almost critique her need to be sexual, to know who she was as a woman, right? To be that if you wear bright colors, then you are
attract men.
You're
Yes.
and that that's what you can be. And so the more you blend, the more you merge into whatever it is that society says you should be, then you're a lady. And even though there was a thing for her about needing a man, I still felt like she was doing it on her own terms, though.
Yeah.
Like, unlike what they were trying to do to Mattie, which was like, I don't care if he beats you, I don't care if he eats you, I don't care if he bites your finger. Look, like, you just gotta have somebody. And I think that, like, even now I'll see memes online and say things like, this generation doesn't honor marriage, and our grandparents stayed together 50 years. Well, if we be honest, our granddaddy had like 3 outside families.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, if we're just gonna tell the truth,
you're right.
Gonna be honest. And a lot of times those women stayed not because that man was so good and not because they couldn't go nowhere. What money did they have? When you have 10,
no skills and no money.
Exactly.
You couldn't even open checking accounts until the 80s.
Exactly. And when you have 15 kids by a man with no education, no job, no means, guess what? So just because somebody is staying does not mean that it's healthy, whole, and content. I don't buy it.
Absolutely. And that's still happening today in 2021, which is crazy to me. Not as much, but it's still happening.
To speak back to the point that you mentioned about her imagery and the bright colors, we all know there's been a lot of studies that show that women who wear red yield more rich husbands. Men are more attracted to women who wear those bright colors, but at the same time, nearly every one of those studies will show that that's a societal thing, because for so many years we've been shown that bright colors and pink that will attract a man.
You think growing up, I thought red lipstick mean you were a whore. Nobody else. Grandma
in that exact way.
All right,
no, in that exact way. Yes,
definitely.
Let's not forget how she got the pastor.
And we've been told that.
So T. Marie, going back to that T. Marie, especially that was the outfit that made me go back. Wait, hold on a second. They always have her in a bright outfit, but here they have her in like the brightest red, head to toe. And everybody else in the congregation is like very dark, drab colors, except for her. So she stands out, right, like a flower. But I also noticed that even after that point, where kind of her dreams were crushed, that she was worthy of a good man, quote unquote good man, but even though he wasn't a good man, she still stuck to like bright colors. But it was almost like the outfits changed a little bit to where the bright color allowed her, it was more she was wearing it for herself instead of someone else, if that makes sense.
Right. So y'all, what about
Chris, before you go, somebody in the comments said their uncle wouldn't let them wear red nail polish. I think it was my friend April said they couldn't even wear red nail polish. Because I just thought, they really had me thinking red whore. Yeah, like these things were interchangeable.
I thought the same thing. It's kind of like wearing red lipstick, red nail polish, like all that red, it was kind of whorish.
And especially being a dark-skinned woman, I didn't start wearing red until I was in my lipstick-wise, until I was in my late 20s, because I was always told dark-skinned women shouldn't wear red. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look. You don't look good in red. Now I don't care.
Yeah.
Well,
now it's our color of empowerment.
Etta Mae was in red. She was in red. So y'all let's talk about how do you feel about Mattie's relationship with Basil and how she treated him?
Okay.
First, before that, so let's Miss Eva, okay, who she finally boards with, and how Miss Eva never took money from her. Let me think about it. How much I owe you? Let me think about it. Well, Miss Eva kept telling Mattie that this boy, he's spoiled. Children gonna be afraid of the dark. They'll get over it, And you see that was kind of a foreshadow of things to come. It was, I mean, I caught it right on. This lady knew what she was talking about. You were spoiling this child. You are not doing any good for him. He's going to be a badass spoiled man if you keep treating him like this. So speak to...
And he was.
Right. So speak to why we think Mattie raised him and treated him like that.
So just from my perspective, it was generational. You go back to her father and how he sheltered her. She was more of a helicopter mom, but her father sheltered her, didn't, let her experience life. They lead up to that a lot. And I think that when she was out on her own, and because I think she even tells Basil at one point, like, it's you and me. It's you and me. I've got you and you've got me. But I think it comes back from the issues that she had with her father.
Okay. I can see that.
Yeah. I also see a lot of imagery where not only are the women damsels in distress in need of a man, or not able to identify the father of their children, so on and so forth. In the film, we have a possible rapist, another definite rapist. We have a drunken handyman that doesn't do his job, even though he does show kindness to the LGBTQ community. And then in this case, we have someone who is not necessarily a criminal, but has a criminal record and is supposed to show up for court, but just runs off. And so from one turn to the next, African-American men are painted in a negative light, I feel, and I understand it to be a women's empowerment type piece, or at least the 1989 version of what was available of that for Black women. But I felt like there was a lot of imagery that looked down on African-American men just as much as the struggles that were shown by the women.
Right.
That relationship with Basil runs me low. Even when I was 9 years old, it ran me low, and it runs me low at almost 40.
Yeah.
I think because, and I'll give you an example. When I first started practicing, when I would go to like family court, and I would see somebody, maybe a woman putting a man on child support, right? And they would bring their mamas with them, and the mama would raise more sand than the darn boy, and be out there like, if she would have just closed her legs, we wouldn't even be here. As if your son was not a participant. And a lot of times I would think to myself, like, ma'am, you grew up as a single mom, you know what that struggle looks like. Why would you be defending that same behavior in your son? Why would you condone the same behavior in your son? And I think it's because a lot of times some women, not all single mothers are like this. My grandmother raised my dad practically after my granddad died by herself, and she was not like this. But a lot of women, that son almost becomes the husband, right? Yeah. He's meeting all the needs except for physical, but they literally put the burden of, it's almost like this woman saying she got a baby by her husband instead of a baby by her son. You know what I mean? And so when you see, because the older lady asked her, she said, when you gonna have a man? When you gonna entertain a man here tonight? And she was like, no, I'm just focusing on the kids. Right. So much so that he became her husband. Yeah.
He did. He became her. He did whatever he wanted to do. He offered all kinds of excuses for everything. She believed him, and I mean, no matter what he said or did, she believed him. He off doing God knows what all during the day in her car. Not picking her up from work. I wish I would drop my mama off at work and not pick her up when she actually catch the bus.
One time.
Like that's not gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like I just. In that moment, I was like, Mattie, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing this? But I guess it goes back to, how she was raised, maybe in her relationship with her dad.
I'm gonna throw a word out there. I'm gonna throw a word out there that is so overused, but it doesn't make it any less true. Trauma. Yeah. All the trauma she had experienced, all the things, and people have this notion that, oh, I've learned more, so I'm not going to repeat the same thing, but they repeat the same cycles. Absolutely. And to Katrina's point, I did outreach in Woodlawn, and I had so many mamas that I knew them little boys with their husbands. That was who they depended on. You're watching the younger kids, I need you to go do this and handle that. but then let me protect him when he gets in trouble acting out at school, and so we're not intersecting that discipline to say, no, this is not okay. And they think they're protecting him. But then it gets to the point where he gets too big and it's like you can't control him at all. And now he's making those same decisions that you thought you were protecting and pulling him away from.
Right.
But it's just that cycle repeating.
And it gets to the point where Mattie had to sell her house. A house that she didn't work 30 years for. 30 years, okay, to have this house, had to sell it and go, well, it's a Brewster place.
And that's what's so sad. I had a lady I was working with, I was case managing for. She had 9 payday loans, just trying to make it. And when I finally had the time to sit down, I'm like, we're gonna look through this. Like, I got to get you out of this cycle. I found out she had a house paid for that she had left to her sons, 30 and 28, because they were getting on her nerves because they weren't doing the things. They wouldn't go get a job. They wouldn't, do right. They were utilizing her car. And I'm like, you had left a paid for house to come live in an apartment instead of throwing them grown men out of your house. But that was that mentality, right? Let me just protect them. Let me just let them have it. And maybe they'll start taking care of it. And that wasn't the case.
Right. And the idea, I remember, and this is the short of it, when I finished school, when I went off to college, my dad and them turned my bedroom into a study. He immediately was like, buy a queen size bed, bring a twin in here. I mean, and when I would come home and when I decided to move back home, so I got on my feet, he put a code on the Wi-Fi. I had to pay. He asked for $150 every month. And when I didn't pay, he changed the code on the Wi-Fi. And I remember being so angry, thinking like, why would you do this? When I got ready to move out into my own place, for those 2 years that I had been there, my dad gave me an envelope with every month that I had paid with all the money in there. And he was like, you should be straight for the rest of the year. And I was like, why would you? I could have, I could have did with this money. And I remember him thinking, I have to make you uncomfortable so you can't stay here. See, right. As long as you're making them comfortable, where they gonna go?
Exactly.
Yes. Wi-Fi free. I'm in my queen bed. Where we going? Yeah. And we do our children a disservice when we don't make them responsible. And you still have people that are our age draining their parents dry.
Yep, I agree. All right, so Mattie sells a home, right? She has to go. So somebody clarify this for me. I'm sure, I know it says in the film that she reached out to Ciel, and she told Ciel about what Basil had done, but she didn't want to talk about it anymore. So Ciel, you think Ciel sent for her to come to Brewster Place? Is that how it worked, you think? Just clarify that for me.
Yeah, I think she got her the place. Like, it was kind of like, hey, I know this person, they need a place to live. Because I think in the book, it lays it out a little bit more, but in the movie or in the miniseries, it definitely seems as if Ciel sent for her, or Ciel kind of set it up because, the handyman Ben even says, Ciel told me you were coming, or I told Ciel I'd take care of you.
So Lucilia, all right. And y'all, this is a fun fact that I learned. I didn't even realize this, but so Lynn Whitfield in the film is much younger than Mattie, obviously, because Mattie was Ciel was only a few years older than Basil, right? So, but in real life, Lynn Whitfield is like 7 months older than Oprah, and she's 3 years older than Jack A. But she's playing such a younger character in the film. I thought that was cool. So now we're here where we meet Ciel. Well, I don't meet her, but we see adult Ciel, and Ciel has her own issues with men, and that scene, baby, it gets still. It's not as heart-wrenching anymore, but when I was younger and I'm watching it, y'all stayed away from all those sockets. I promise you, it was just instilled in my brain to not do that. But Ciel, she let's just talk about Ciel. This man don't want her. Do you think he wants her? Do you think her husband Eugene wants her, or do you think he wants to be off willy-nilly doing what he wants to do? What do y'all think?
The latter, definitely. He
I think what
says it.
Tia Marie said earlier is the absolute truth. It's a cycle. Her daddy didn't want her. Remember, the only reason he even came back for her
That's when
is because the grandmama died.
Yeah.
That if the grandma had lived to be 150 years old, she never would have saw her daddy. She literally went and chased a man who was just like her father, just and made excuses, just like the old lady was making excuses for her son, even though she said he wasn't worth the spit, the cuff. She still excused his behavior because, don't worry about it. He's just like his father, right?
Yep.
And so she goes and marry a man like
It's a
Marie
domino
said.
effect. You're
Yeah,
right.
it's like,
You're right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can't believe that she was willing. Now, y'all stop me if I'm speaking out of turn, but she says this in the movie. Well, I already have Serena, so I'm gonna get rid of this baby
Because I have plenty of time.
to appease him. Now, this is not a anti-abortion discussion, okay? But she actually said, I already have Serena. So to appease my man and not leave me, I'm going to get rid of this baby.
Right.
But that just goes to show how much she wanted to be accepted by him and how much she would do whatever it took for him to stay around, unfortunately.
I mean, did he send money home? Like,
I don't think so, because he also even told her at one point, he's like, with the baby, what was it, when she was still pregnant, it was 2 babies and you are on my back, I'm never going to get anything. Like, tell me that. You wouldn't even tell me that twice. I'd be gone. Like, bye.
Wait a minute. Doc Lock Lana.
Yeah, that's my friend Lana.
Wait a minute, Doc.
What'd she say? Go back. Hold on. I
need
missed
to call
it.
her Doc Lock. Hold on, Doc Lock. Hold on. Can I call you Doc Lock? Please, can we call you Doc Lock? If you read Men of Brewster Place, you find out Eugene was gay and that's why he didn't want her.
It's on my list.
It makes sense.
I'm going to read it. Thank you, Lana.
Me?
Right.
Are you serious?
So if you think about it, it does make sense.
She was his beard, and she had no idea. And so he's off wherever, working
at the dockyards with dockyard sailor.
Wow. Okay.
All right. Even though we're talking about Lucille having an abortion for him, think about how much women give up. It may not have been a baby, but careers. If you're a mother and you and it's between you and your husband, the child, somebody has to take off to take care of the kid. Very rarely are you going to see that the husband quit his job, right? It's usually going to be that woman that puts her dreams on hold or whatever, her hopes or whatever it is. So even though it was a baby for this one, I bet you we could all think of some times, even in our own personal lives, that we've given up some things in relationships or trying to be in a relationship or be accepted. So I just think it's more symbolic of her need to do away with what she wanted for herself for the sake of this relationship.
That is a recurring theme in this movie. That is a huge theme in this movie, are all these women's unfulfilled dreams. Like they all have unfulfilled dreams. Mattie, Etta Mae, Ciel, Coralee, they all have unfulfilled dreams. They have dreams, but it just gets squashed. It gets squashed. We can get to the end later, but they all have unfulfilled dreams, which is really, really, really sad. T-Marie, you
Chris, I'm saying I'm gonna bring in a character that you didn't mention already. You didn't mention that wall.
I was literally about to say it. I was like, we're going to talk about that.
Okay. But I think it's so important that wall was so significant. It's like to your point of what you were saying, everybody's dreams is stopping here. Everything that I had tried, everything that I wanted, it's like, this is the end. And that wall, I think, is just such a strong character, because even throughout the miniseries, you see them looking at that wall. Can
no sun come through? My flowers dying.
Exactly.
And the ridiculous reason that they discovered to cut down traffic through a portion of their community, and they just decided to build a brick wall at the end of their street, trapping them.
You know why though, Gina? It was because of this particular road. The people or whoever was in this zone didn't have any money to stop it. You know, like
Yeah.
what's Robin Givens' character's name? I'm sorry, I got it here somewhere. Kiswana, Melanie. And we'll talk about that in a minute. Kiswana was telling Mattie why that wall was there, you know, and she's like, the people with money, they're not gonna have a wall on this street, but clearly through the housing project, yeah, we're putting a wall up. At least people didn't care. They don't care for the people in the projects. They're gonna put a wall up, you know, and that's still, again, it's happening today. Stuff like that is still happening today, and it's so
you see it with the highways.
Exactly.
You know, we go run the highways right through the Black community and separate y'all, put y'all over there, and then we got all this over here. And that's stuff people don't want to talk about.
Affluent neighborhoods.
Exactly.
You see it with redlining. You see it with redlining. You see it with gerrymandering districts and things like that. We have literal walls today that you just can't see them.
Exactly.
You know.
Well, and also you can go even further than that. Look at the housing projects, Gate City, High Chaparral. They cut all the trees down, so now the people can't. Because you know, when I was younger, I grew up in Gate City. So when I would go to my grandma's house, my grandmama, Miss Emma, all the old ladies in the projects, they get together on the porch out there in the shade and talk and laugh. They cut the trees down because they don't want the people outside. They literally are cutting down trees because they don't want people outside. Like anything.
What?
Oh yeah, there's no tree. Run to the neighborhood. There's no trees over there. And in Gate City, we used to be able to just drive through the back of Gate City when I went. Now, if you turn down Gate City, it's walled off. It is walled off, and it's one way in and one way out.
Right. Yeah,
it's a prison. Horrible. It literally is a prison, and that's right here in our city. I mean, it's a shame.
I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. And those people, you know, those people in that neighborhood probably have the same attitude that Mattie had in this film when she says, if I tear it down today, they're just going to put another one up tomorrow. They probably have that same psyche, like nothing's going to happen.
Defeated psyche that says, why even try to fight it? Why press on the elected official that's supposed to be representing me and the constituents that live in my neighborhood, because it may not work. It probably won't work.
Yep, it's horrible.
That just goes with generational trauma. It goes with the generational trauma of mom and daddy lived in the projects. I'm going to end up in the projects. And, my kids are going to, and it's just this cycle that just happens that is related. And I know we're going to say trauma a lot, but thank you, April. Yes, learned helplessness.
April is a therapist, so you can see good stuff out.
That is it right there. Learn
what I'm saying is that in the trailer park, they're not cutting down the trees. Right. They poor. They. I mean, have you seen You ain't seen ratchetness until you go to a trailer park. Like, let's be clear here. So, but they still have their trees because they still have white privilege. They may be poor, but at the end of the day, they still white. And so the idea that we're doing this so they don't congregate, so violence doesn't occur. That's what the reasoning is. But violence is happening in the white trailer parks. They're happening all over the place. But you're not cutting down their trees, and you're not blocking their exits out of here either. It is,
Yeah, that wall, T. Marie, is a character in itself. It is a character.
Yeah, and I think Melanie coming in shows that mindset of when knowledge is collides with ignorance. Because of her experience being completely different from the other women in Brewster Place. It's like, whoa, this is the issue here. The problem with that is that you have folks who have been conditioned to accepting, hey, this is what's best because what they're living in now might actually be better than what they had before. Right. So it's like, wait a minute, this is cool. It's all right. It is what it is. But they're looking at it like, no, you can actually fight this. This is a way to deal with this. And so you have that contrast too.
Yep. And that's
I'm glad you brought Melanie character up because I wrote on my little list, Melanie kind of serves as what we call like the woke people in 2020, in the year of our Lord 2021. But
her mother calls fake woke.
The conversation that she has with her mother about her wokeness.
Yes.
Sometimes people who try to be woke or they think they're helping can also do more harm because you look at the way that she was judging the lady with all the kids, right? You're trying to do good, but you don't even know how to have a conversation with these people because you've never been in this environment. Her mama just bust her straight down. You don't know nothing about this either. You've never even lived here.
Let me tell you something. Do y'all know we talked about the men of this film and how they were just horrible guys? Leon, Apshu, her boyfriend, Melanie's boyfriend, he told her, he's like, boo, this is how I grew up. You don't know these folks like that. Like, you can't talk to them. You can't act like this and act like that. He was the one dude, well, besides Ben, but he was the one guy in this movie film that I'm like, bro, you're absolutely right. You know,
Yeah.
this girl is coming in here thinking that she gonna save the world and everybody's just horrible and blah blah blah. But that's all they knew. That's all they knew.
Right.
You know, and
I think at heart, she was a social worker.
right.
And she was a social worker who did not go to school. She didn't have any background. She just had the passion for it. And she was missing a lot in terms of, how to actually help people.
She had great
And
intentions.
I feel confident that Tiffany will agree that those elements that you're taught about how to, not just empathy, which I truly believe is something that you can't teach, but just how to have communication with people and motivational interviewing, things like that are so important. You can't just stroll in and form a tenants association and expect everyone to, one, listen to you, believe you, buy in enough to organize and let you lead them when you just got here.
You
Right.
haven't paid your dues. You have not paid your dues. You don't have any skin in this game. And you basically moved here as a pet project. That's the way
Listen,
I would have seen it.
It's the
this
savior
girl
complex.
has come from Linden Hills, over the mountain. We're just gonna say she came from over the mountain, right? And she's coming down here with the po folk, carrying her rug up the steps, thinking she, down for the cause. And it's like, girl, like, you don't know these people struggle. Your mama got you right on together. That is my favorite scene of this movie. She was like, girl, black is black. Like, you want to
Yeah, it was really
look up in a
powerful.
dictionary and get a black name. Let me tell you the story about Melanie,
Yes, she did.
your
She
name.
so tough.
You had to look in the dictionary for Kiswana. Like Cicely Tyson, baby, got her
She bust
right
her
on
good,
together.
baby. Yes, she did.
Yeah.
My
She
That's
did.
one of my favorite parts of the movie is when she lets her have it.
Yeah.
She's like, that name came from somebody. Like, she
Right.
worked hard for that name. And now you're sitting here saying you're ashamed of that name because it's not African enough. It's not
Well,
black enough.
And I
Like,
think sometimes it goes back to some of the things that you are ashamed of your parents. Because remember when she told Leon at the very beginning, she was like, if you think you're going to watch football and not cook, because that's what her mama did. She was like, you got another thing coming. She despised the role that her mother played. And her mama was like, well, I did that so that you wouldn't have to do that.
Right.
I did. I think about my mama being a lunchroom manager at Parker High School. And I remember she worked at the lunchroom where I was in elementary school. And this was back in the day when they had to wear all white and the aprons and them big hair nets.
Oh, yeah.
And she would be calling my name and I would be linked because I was like, I don't want to know my mama worked in lunch. But then when I think about it, I'm like, my mama worked in a lunchroom with the most amazing health insurance so I could go to law school, so I could do everything that I want. Like, the nerve to be ashamed of somebody doing, you get what I'm saying? Like, when you're a child, you don't really think about it because it's just like, people like, oh, she in the lunchroom worker.
Right.
But when you think about the sacrifices that your parents really have made, the nerve of us sometimes to be ashamed of what they have to give up so that we don't have to live like that.
Absolutely, I agree. So let's talk about the baby and the socket and how it just made Ciel grief stricken. She couldn't snap out of it. I don't particularly know what that feels like personally, but I have lost a parent, but to lose a child, I can imagine, it was two at that point, 2 kids. So I feel like at that point, Mattie, she really took on the motherly role because she's like, if you trying to die today, it's going to be over my dead body. It's not going to happen. So she had to nurse this woman back to life because she wasn't having it. I feel like she had a lot of regrets. I feel like Ciel had a lot of regrets at that point.
Phew.
But that was a tough scene for me. It's a very tough scene for me.
When they put her in that bathtub and she bathing her back and they go, I just be like, Lord, I'm about to break it down over here. Like I'm really about to lose. Like I'm about to lose all of my cool because that is to me. I know y'all like the other scene, but that is the most powerful scene. The way that she scrubs her back and this lady's crying because she realized what she has lost. One she gave up willingly, the other one not so much. And it's
and then her man still left.
Yeah, and I think she's having just overall regrets of her life, realizing that she, had these plans and all of this stuff, and she doesn't really necessarily have any of it. I think that's kind of how Mattie Mae felt as well. She had this idea of how her life was gonna go, and it went nothing of those sorts. So I think that was also a recurring thing in the movie for all of the women.
I agree.
One of my friends just texted me that's watching. And I cannot take credit for this, but she was saying that, one of the themes in the movie was about getting the American dream and then losing it. She was like, 'cause when you look at Mattie's thing, even though she got the house because somebody passed it down to her, she took pride in owning that house. When that lady lost that house, did you see how she was crying? This idea that she finally got the American dream, and then because of her son, she lost it. And then, because when the movie starts, she talks about she doesn't even know how she ended up in this place because she did not plan on being here. And the fact that how sometimes we don't get to choose the cards that we're dealt, and we do well, but sometimes that falls off too, and then we have to readjust and we have to revamp. And that theme of achievement and then losing the achievement, because when you look at Robin Givens' character, she gave it up willingly. Homegirl could have had anything she want. Mattie didn't give it up willingly. These are the parts that anyway, so I wanted to talk a little bit about that theme too.
I agree.
Something that I thought was so beautiful in this film that I don't think gets enough credit is just the sisterhood. And how she was even able to show up for her friend. And I don't think a lot of times that's lifted up enough, to showing that even though we both may be going through, we both may be struggling, we live in such an individualistic society, I don't need nobody, I got it, I can do it on my own. But, to sit up there and to wash your friend back, to tell your friend the truth. Nah, you're doing too much. You don't need to be messing with this man. It's just that sisterly love that I think goes back to even understanding relationships, and I really felt Mattie really showed herself as a good friend.
I mean, because they're all simply trying to survive. They're trying to survive in Brewster Place, and so they don't have anybody but each other. So they have to have this companionship and this sisterly vibes going. I mean, you have to. You don't have anything else. The men are good for nothing. The men are not there, non-existent. So you have to even. I don't want to jump too far, but I mean, even with the lesbian couple towards the end, I mean, at the end of the day, everybody is trying to survive. Like Doc Locke, the power of women coming together and having a sense of community. Exactly. It's exactly what that is. All right, so let's talk about a woman that we haven't spoken about yet, and that's Coralee, with all them babies kids. All them babies kids. Oh, baby.
I love that hateful woman.
Baby, Coralee. And it's listen, I took so much from Coralee, or between her and her kids, like I got a lot from it. One thing I really appreciated the play that they went and saw. It as an actor, it touched me because the kids are so impressionable. Like kids are so very impressionable. He asked his mama, he said, "Am I gonna look like that when I get older? Is that what a dumbass look like when I get older?" And I said, "This boy been listening. They up here pulling down curtains and causing a ruckus, but he actually hears his mama calling him dumbass every other word." Kids are very impressionable. And I think that rings true with her. Like she realized in that moment, wait a minute. I call my kids dumbasses all the time.
Absolutely.
But,
and Chris, to me, that was one of the most powerful scenes. You have set up here and said these things. And even though your child is doing all these things, they're young, they're kids, they're going to do stuff. We're supposed to insert the discipline. But the fact that he recognized this is something that I'm called. This is what this play is saying it looks like. It scares me. Is this what I am?
Right.
And then her even in turn internalizing, no, baby, that's not what you are. But I think that just even speaks to the things that we speak over our children, the things we speak over our communities, and then when the community act like that, or the community is like, whoa, hold up, I didn't mean it like that.
Right.
And we don't always get an opportunity to dial it back. So to me, I think that was so powerful, and them both recognizing the power of words.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I agree with you, T. Marie. There, it kind of brings up the power of life and death is in the tongue. And in that moment, she realized what she was sowing into his life and into their lives. And, when she kind of took pride in them for the first time, because, her whole thing was the babies. She loved baby dolls. And then when she'd have a real baby, she loved them until they were no longer babies. Then she didn't know how to take care of them. And so it was just kind of like, stay out of my way. Let me do my stories and you do your thing. But she was sowing into their lives this whole time when she wasn't paying attention to them, and they're begging for attention. We see it all the time with kids. They're just begging for someone somewhere to pay them attention. Yeah. And I got really emotional at that scene where they're in the theater. Like, I was like, why am I crying watching this? But in that moment, you see how much power you have in what you say to someone. If you sit there and call them stupid their entire life, it doesn't matter if they're a genius. They're going to think they're stupid. And so this kid is going, like, am I going to be a dumbass? Am I going to have a donkey's head? Like, is that me? And so that was a turning point for her. And I think also for Gina, like, showing that when you're trying to help someone, sometimes it's just like the little simplest thing of kind of developing it, like pouring yourself into their life. You took them to a play. It wasn't anything like major. It wasn't anything. But in that moment, you let them know that they were worthy to go see this play. Right? You're worthy to see this. And so then it kind of changes her life because she can take pride in her kids.
Right.
And they're listening because mom's paying attention to us.
Right.
And I love the moment when they leave the apartment looking so nice and someone's sitting outside and goes, is it already Easter? And she shuts them up because she's insulted. Like, it doesn't have to be a religious holiday for my children to be.
She got them together, baby. She got them. But you know what? And it doesn't say this in the movie, but when you read the book, I wonder, it goes back to that theme we've been talking about this hour about the need to be accepted and loved. Because one of my favorite characters is the lady with the blue hair. I can't think of her name right now. But when they're arguing, Miss Sophie, she says, well, you should have thought about that before you popped all those kids out. If we had $1 for every time we've heard an old lady say that to somebody with a baby. And you can imagine what her life looked like, the fact that she needed, because when babies are little, they love you, whether you're a crackhead, they love you no matter what. Babies don't judge because they don't know what to judge. They just love you because they need you nonstop. Right. And so that's why she kept having all these babies, because there was no judgment in a baby. That baby loves you if you make an error, if you do wrong. I've been on cases where the parent has abused a child, and when they take that child away, that child cries because no matter how much that mother was neglecting, that's still mama. And so there is this love from a child that this lady needed, because I'm willing to bet money that she never received it in any other part of her life except for from her children, unconditionally.
Of course not. Right, of course.
And I know that a large emphasis is always put on, the power of the tongue and speaking positively with kids. But because we all know that there are lots of broken people walking around, we do have to remember to speak positively and speak life into adults as well, because it's never too late to change, and it's never too late for, someone's self-esteem to improve.
Absolutely.
And with that play, I feel like it yet again would be a domino effect, because Coralee was sitting in that audience like one of the kids. Every time they would ask a question, she's looking like, no, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is, So that would have just trickled on down to those kids. Once again, it's a domino effect. But I'm glad that she was able to get some insight from that, and she got wait a minute, I need to stop calling my children dumbasses. I need to get us some culture. I feel like Coralee will get it together. Y'all think so? I think she will.
I do.
Yeah, especially when she said,
I think she's done having kids.
Yeah,
just
especially
that's
when her son asked her if William Shakespeare was black, and she said not yet.
not yet, baby.
My.
Babe, that part, like I was like, yes, thank you, not yet,
Yep.
not
Yep.
yet. And we've seen the black William Shakespeares, and there are more to come.
Right.
You know, since that time period, like it's
Well,
Right.
and I think also for Coralee, she was a woman who was robbed of her childhood.
Yeah.
Like for a lot of us were pushed into adulthood long before we were ready to be adults, right? Whether it was through taking care of younger
Amen.
siblings, cooking food. A lot of us parents told us too much, showed us too much. We knew too much, and so
Yeah.
a lot of us are robbed of our childhood. And so when we have children, we're still in adolescence age. Like we're supposed to be grown, but we ain't gotten there yet because we've been grown our entire life.
Amen.
And so it's like when you finally get your own place, you still got all these responsibilities. Sometimes people have a tendency to want to revert back because she
Mhm.
was like a sister as opposed to a mama to these kids.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely. Have I missed anybody, y'all? Any main characters? I don't think I missed anybody yet, right? Are we on to Teresa and T? I mean T and Lorraine. We're at them now, right? Okay. All right. So we're at Teresa and Lorraine. You know, they bebop into town, you know, and eventually, you know, initially, you know, they're like, oh, they're going to be causing a ruckus, going to be having these loud parties. They always had some kind of preconceived notion about these girls. Well, Miss Sophie did. Had preconceived notions about these girls. First, she thought they were going to be wild and hoodlums and having parties. Then it reverted to, oh, that's it. When she said, oh, that's it, I said, really? Because they sharing an umbrella? Really? That's so here we go with Teresa and Lorraine. And this just sets, you know, is building up to the climax of the film. And yes, let's talk about Teresa and I feel like they Teresa says in the film that, you know, they used to live in Linden Hills. She said that it was a quick thing, but she said it, which is where Melanie is from. But, you know, they had to leave there because of how Lorraine was like, they said this. Then they went somewhere else and the days got this. And she's like, I'm not moving anywhere else because of the days. So let's talk about the two. That's how they're referred to, the two.
The two, yeah. I was truly touched by this. I don't know if this was the first time we had a lesbian relationship portrayed in a major motion film, but
Black,
definitely
yes.
I feel like it's the first Black one that we saw in film. And so we were given the opportunity to see the story told of losing the job, losing the family, like you mentioned, leaving and going from one community to the next just to find somewhere they can live. I jokingly said to my boyfriend when I was watching it, I wish that I could go back in time and just tell them to go to California because they didn't know, they didn't have internet, you know, but that constant running and trying to find somewhere safe where you can just be who you are and not be afraid and also not have to hide. Because it's really clear that one of them is completely focused, laser focused on hiding and staying as conspicuous as possible, while the other is absolutely tired of doing that. And that's something that gay couples fight over and lose each other over all the time, because it's really hard to get on the same page when your safety, your livelihood, you could die if, you know, someone decides they want to take you off this planet just because you're gay.
Well,
And
Lorraine,
you can
I'm
see
sorry, go
that
ahead,
there's
Jen.
a lot of balance.
So Lorraine was she didn't want to lose her job. You know, that was a very scary thing where she's like, this is all I got. You know, if I can't teach, you know, so it wasn't so much that Lorraine, she's always been a lesbian. She said that's why she doesn't have a relationship with her parents. You know, it's not that she was trying to hide the fact that she was a lesbian, but she didn't want it to
She
affect
refused
her
to.
livelihood, you know? And that's something that still goes on today. Teachers can't get on Facebook or have certain people on the Facebooks for fear that, you know, they're going to lose a job. And it's still happening.
Definitely Don't Ask, Don't Tell has moved away from the military as it's now against the law and into every other industry and arena. for professionals where you're forced to hide.
Right.
I thought something that was so interesting that always stood out to me about their time on the screen was her saying, beige bras and oatmeal. You know what I'm saying? Like, these are the two things that have been consistent in my life. And I always felt like that was trying to find something to hold on to, something that's mine, something that is stable, something that never changes because I'm having to change so much. And that always kind of stuck out in my mind, that those two things, as minimal as they are, those were the two things that were very extremely important. Yeah, exactly, for her.
Yep.
And then you have Miss Sophie, that one of my favorite scenes. I seen you over there. Like, first of all, mind your business, old lady. We're gonna start there first. But there's always a Miss Sophie, and if you just think about it, there's always somebody else pointing out, I saw you do that. And you could just tell that Miss Sophie had a whole miserable life. You know, telling what happened to this lady growing up.
Her husband, but she know her. Everybody knew it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that she was judging the lady with all the kids. She judging the lesbian couple. She beefing with Mattie. She's just somebody who just could not be content. And she was in the traditional relationship. This goes back to, just because you got a warm body don't mean that it's kosher there. She was in a traditional relationship, had her children in wedlock and all of this, and just as hateful, that most hateful person.
That work out for you.
I was just about to say, I've coined Miss Sophie a hater. She's a hater. Like, she don't have love. She ain't got no kids. Like, you are hating on this girl. She got all these kids. You hating because you ain't got none. These two women over here love each other. You're hating because they got love for each other. This man, and
they faithful. They faithful.
She's a hater. That's all it is. And we're going to have haters to the end of time. Like,
she may have been the most unhappy person in the film, even though everyone else had all of these traumas that they had to overcome. She was the person that some people would look at, as to have had it together the most, but she was the ugliest on the inside.
Hater.
And misery loves company. Misery loves company, and she wanted everybody to be her company and be just as miserable as she was.
But
listen, at that neighborhood watch meeting, when they bust her down about her husband cheating on her, I was hollering. You hear me? It makes me laugh every time. She deserved it. She deserved every bit of it.
No, her old girl throwing all that food out the window at her. That is my favorite scene.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Don't get mad. It's my grandmama recipe.
Meatloaf like normal people. Just making meatloaf like normal people.
Everybody put olives in the meatloaf.
I love that she stopped her when she got to the actual meat part and said, "Hold on now, that's $3 a pound."
No man, you ain't throwing this good meat, boo boo.
Yeah.
Not today. Not today. But you know what? I feel, y'all, let's talk about the scene where Lorraine and Ben, they have a connection. She goes and she has tea in his apartment because he says that she reminds him of his daughter. So this is a very warm scene before this very climactic scene. But this is the warm scene between the two of them. Let's talk a little bit about that, how he felt like he could relate because she acted and looked like his daughter.
Well, I think they both became surrogate family members for the other one. Because like you notice when she's getting to the argument with her girlfriend, she says, you can't keep hiding in basements. You can't, it doesn't matter how many basements you go hide in, it's still going to be there. So we know that, whether it was weeks or a couple of months between the first visit to the basement to the climactic night, she had been going regularly. Like there had been something there that they had developed this friendship. So they definitely became that surrogate because, like she talks about with sending Christmas cards and then being returned at first and then not putting return and then calling and being hung up on, things of that nature. Like they became each other's family in kind of I don't say a weird way, but
Yeah, well, they both feel the need, I think, within each other. Mm-hmm. I think they both had something that was missing in different ways. Her, it was the acceptance from her parents. Right. He looks like that. He's that father figure. For him, it was, I don't have my daughter. You look like my daughter.
Right.
You know, so it's like I think they both were actually fulfilling a need in each other. You know, they enjoyed each other's company. One trying to, you know, it wasn't any weird or creepy thing about it. It's just two folks that enjoy each other's company that get
Yep.
each other, but
Yep.
allow each other to be who they are. You know, no
Yep.
judgment
Yep.
was between them.
Yeah, because he was appalled when you could tell the look at his face. He was appalled when she said that her parents sent back letters and hung up on her face on the phone. He's like, what? He would give anything to get a letter from his daughter or talk to her on the phone, you know? So it was, yeah, it was very touching to me. Any other thoughts on that scene before we
Well,
get
I definitely bought into the fact that maybe they were going to become like relatives. And so that's why it was that much more confusing to me when at the end of the movie, when he tried to come to her rescue, she pushed him away and then ultimately bludgeoned him to death. And it's like, so maybe she didn't trust him, or maybe now she doesn't trust any man. It wasn't that she was completely delirious and traumatized, because as soon as she saw her partner, she refused to leave until they let her join her in the ambulance. So I'm really confused about what that was meant to mean. Her taking his life after he was there to bring light into hers.
Right.
I don't think that she knew that it was him. When that type of trauma, because of how it happened and when it happened, her reaction was just to a man in general. And I know we're not there to talk about the scene just yet, but I just want to say that Robin Givens' character says this when she's talking to Leon in the beginning of the movie. She says, "We have called the police so many times because of him that this is going to be a problem." And it further just solidifies this conversation that we have all the time about sometimes there's over policing in communities, Black communities, and then sometimes there are police not doing what they're supposed to do, right? And so you have a person that had the police step in a while back when they were calling about the drug dealing and everything else that was happening. We may not even be in this place, but because they did not care, they didn't show up, and she was saying these folks didn't even come. You now have a predator still in the community, and that man, that they're in every community. Just like you call for help and help never comes, and now you have something like this happens. Oh,
and I feel like it leaves the story so open-ended that the person who raped her was not brought to justice at all. Not even brought back in to the story. And I understand it was the end of the story, but I just feel like there had to have been some way to appease the audience with showing justice for this person who perpetrated such an awful crime against her and all women in that community, because she may be the only one that they portrayed him taking advantage of, but he was constantly calling at women, grabbing at women. They definitely painted his character to be an aggressor, an anti-feminist aggressor, and then he commits this act and then they don't show any justice for him. So that kind of hurt my heart.
Yeah, you're right.
I think the wicked thing about it is, and I like this about sometimes some films, is leaving it broken. You know, because I think sometimes we always
left it broken.
You know, we always look for this happy end. It's like, okay, it's gonna be good in the end, and for some people, it's not. You know what I'm saying? That wall shows back up again and becomes her barrier to even get away.
Yeah.
You know, and even locking her in, you know, and we see this play out at the end of that frustration of, if this wasn't here.
Right. She could have gotten away.
She could have gotten away.
Yeah.
See, Marie, it's funny that you say that, because that phrase, if this wasn't here, if Basil had showed up, she wouldn't be there. If the lady who wanted all the husband, Jackie character, would have just found the right man, she wouldn't have been there. If Robin Givens' mother would have but for a whole lot of stuff, none of them would be here. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost symbolic of all of the things that they've had to overcome, or poverty, you know, rape, just all kinds of things that have happened to them. But for these things not happening, these people wouldn't even be on Brewster Place. But here we are. This wall stopped this lady from getting away, and this man who thinks he can rape the gay out of her. You know, I'm getting mad out. Let me mute out.
I just think it became like a microcosm of like womanhood, you know, with all these different variations through all these generations. It just became a microcosm of Black womanhood. All these people, like you said, if this hadn't happened, if this, you know, and ultimately it's like we all have to look at this wall every day, you know, even though we going through different stuff, we all looking at this wall, which is like the like penultimate symbol of can't get out. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's
Antagonist for everybody.
yeah, exactly. So we might as well just go ahead and talk about it. We're there now, you know, just that whole scene, you know, where that guy thought that he could rape the gay out of her was just it was horrible. It was horrible, for lack of a better word, you know. And I just think that it's heart-wrenching to think that something like that would happen right there. I mean, all these people are in my mind. I'm trying to figure out the street. I'm trying to see like how close was that wall to like people's like actually walking out on their stoop. Y'all feel me? Like I'm trying to put it in my mind's eye.
But I think what it really highlights is that that's probably not foreign. You know what I'm saying? Like these types of things happen on Brewster's place all the time. And him and his crew are the ones that's keeping up all the hell. We know who's doing it.
Help.
You know, so it's like but his thing of I'm gonna show you who actually run this. You know, so I gotta prove a point to you to let you know. You know, and I think that's what it was. It was, you know, this was a horrific thing that happened to this person, but I don't think it was any different from what probably normally the terrorization that they had on that street anyway.
That makes sense.
That was my thought, you know, in certain neighborhoods, and I come from a poverty-stricken neighborhood. When certain things happen, you didn't call the police, you didn't go and investigate. You went in your house and locked your door and minded your own business.
And that's what happened. That's what
Mhm.
happened.
I grew up in Woodlawn, Gate City, and it was a family. Like, I mean, I lived next door to a drug dealer, a big time drug dealer. And I remember when I ran away from school because I peed on myself. I promise I got a point that I'm getting to this. But I was embarrassed, and I left school, and Gibson was on this busy highway going toward the airport, cars just coming. And I remember I ran across the street and a car almost hit me, and he was walking to school and saw me and grabbed me and said, "Katrina, your daddy would kill you." He walked me all the way home, got me to the porch, knocked on the door, and waited till my daddy came and got me. Like, it was just that. And yeah, he was doing things that were illegal and wrong, and I get it, but it was still in Woodlawn and even in Gate City with the old ladies where my grandmother lived. They felt responsibility for all the kids, and not just my grandmother and us. She felt responsibility for every kid that was out there. She would fuss at them, cuss at them, hit them if need be. And so to me, and these are all poor communities, but there was a sense of we're responsible, right? So I may be doing something wrong, I may be selling drugs, but you're my next door neighbor. I'm gonna make sure you get home safely. And so I never felt unsafe, even in those environments. I just never did.
It tore my heart out that as he drug her to the wall and they passed other people in the community and she called for help, they looked the other way or they just flat out ignored her.
Yep. That was
Do you think it was because they didn't agree with her lifestyle either? You know, sometimes when we don't like somebody, even though we know what's being done to them is wrong or what's been said about them is a lie, we won't defend it because we don't really care about them anyway. Like,
that's right.
Well, I think, you know, because Mattie and Etta Mae, they have a little, when she's doing her hair, they have like a little back and forth about how do you feel about it? Because they've been kind of defending the women, but this is when, you know, the two close friends can actually get down and dirty and get real. And they're like, what do you think about it? So they didn't really understand. But then Mattie kind of understands when she's like, well, I done been loved by women way more than men. Like, men have done me wrong all my life, you know. And then Etta Mae is like, well, it's not the same kind of love. And so I'm thinking they're right in that moment. They're kind of getting it, even though they didn't initially agree. So I think that the people that you're talking about, that they were passing as he was dragging her, I don't know if they agreed or disagreed. I just don't think they got it. And so they didn't feel it necessary or to stop it, which is unfortunate,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that. And, they probably have called the police on him so many times. They never did anything. Why would it be? And he might stop raping her to get me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's like,
Right.
let him stay on task so he don't come after me and mine.
Right.
And
right.
then you still dealing with people living in a confined space.
Yeah.
To your point, Katrina, it's like, wait a minute, I don't want him. You know where I stay? I don't want him coming messing with me. So I'm gonna just mind my business. As bad as what's happening is, I think that's that protective kind of, I'm gonna just protect me and mine, and not pay attention to what else is going on. But the unfortunate thing is, in society, we do so much of that still, where we see things going on, we see people being hurt. We see people being done wrong in just the smallest things, not even anything this huge. And we will turn our backs and walk away as though nothing happened.
Right.
You may think about it later and be like, man, maybe I should have said something, but you didn't. And now that opportunity has passed.
Right. Or we victim blame, right? We'll say, well, she shouldn't have went over his house anyway. Or, if he hadn't have had his pants sagging, the police wouldn't have pulled him over. If he hadn't had his music up, we're just going to make excuses for why these people are in these conditions. We're blaming the victims. And I think what you said, T. Marie, is really spot on. Even in the small things, we don't want to get involved because we don't want to put our necks on the line. We just don't. We don't want to.
Yep. That makes sense. What do y'all think about Ciel coming back? When she was in red this time, she's in red and white.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about her?
That was
coming back,
amazing.
living in New York City.
That might have been one of my favorite parts of the film.
Really?
Yeah, because just like you mentioned, T. Marie, sometimes it's left hanging, and sometimes things get wrapped up neatly. So to hear that she's bounced back, she's okay, she's taken care of herself, she's not gone to New York and found someone to live off of. She's gone to New York and found a career for herself. I absolutely love that.
And she had to be back to help them tear this wall down.
That's right.
Had to come back for that. Absolutely.
She had to come back to help them tear this wall down because, baby, she lost her mind on Brewster Place, So for that wall to come down and her not be there, that's one thing that I just could not have gotten jiggy with. She had to be there to take that wall down. She had to be there to take that wall down, boo. T. Marie said, it ain't all roses at the end of the film, but she had to be there to take that wall down.
That's right.
And it goes back to the thing that we've been talking about, this confined space. She has to get out of the community to heal. She has to get off of Brewster Place to heal. She wouldn't have healed on Brewster Place. Yep. And sometimes when we're raised in certain environments or around certain people, sometimes we have to, move these people out the way. We have to move away. We have to cut them off. We got to do whatever we got to do to get our healing to be able to move into where we need to be. And that's what she does. And like you said, she comes back and she's wearing red, right? She's basically, and it's not a symbol of being a whore or a slut. It becomes this symbol of empowerment. They've almost changed the color, depending on the character that they're using, right?
Yep. I agree. So is rain in y'all? The rain is here. They say
there's an obscure amount of tire irons available.
First of all,
Gina,
you and Bryce was like, I wasn't gonna say nothing. But the one thing that
I think it was planned. I think they knew they were going to take that wall down. Somebody came and dropped all that iron.
This is the thing that get me.
Right.
And Gina, my background is film and everything. It drives me crazy that first they were searching for them, and then like 2 scenes later, it's like 50 million tires
and
hammers that they can use, and it's like, who came and dropped off a box? They was like, they need this over here. But I thought it was beautiful that it was like, no, let's do this. This day started out beautiful. We were trying to raise this money. We was doing this cookout. Everybody out here dancing and having a good time. It's end horrible. And that's what keeps making it bad, is we can't get past this wall. So we go tear it down. So that coming together, even as a community, even the ones that stood back and watched at first, you know what? this ain't serving me well either. Let's do something about it. Yeah.
I don't think any character could have had that epiphany and carried it out better. The look on Oprah Winfrey's face when she's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to just go ahead and get started. Everybody else is going to join me. This is obviously the problem. We're going to take this wall down.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And you know what? The women who stood off back watching it first, sometimes when we go through things and we hear other people's story, we may have had that same experience, but shame keeps us from talking about it or worried about what people are going to think. And so sometimes we're not willing to tear the walls down because we're worried. But every woman who touched that wall was tearing down a trauma that was dealt to them, the cards that were dealt to them, every last one of them. Every last one of them.
Absolutely. It was time for that thing to come down. And it did. It did.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah, yeah.
So y'all, that was the Women of Brewster Plays. Did y'all enjoy the talk?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I did,
But before we go, so I have some trivia. I'm a trivia dude. I love trivia. Y'all probably know the answers. Who sang the opening credit song?
Was it?
It's the same woman that sings the song "Congratulations."
Stephanie Mills. No.
Is it Vesta?
Yes.
Don't make me Google it here.
Okay.
Okay.
Vesta.
Who was it?
Yes.
Who?
Right.
Vanessa Bell.
Here's number 2. What recent show was Oprah and Lynn Whitfield on together?
Greenleaf.
Greenleaf.
I know that one.
Greenleaf. All right. So don't say it all at once. Y'all take turns. How many movies can you name with Cicely Tyson?
Every Tyler Perry movie. Everyone. Everyone. Somebody, did y'all see that meme on Facebook that said, you Tyler Perry, you overworked her too much. I ain't gonna say no names. Did y'all see that?
Oh no.
Do not.
I'm sorry.
They didn't call Tyler Perry out.
What's that movie? Is it Mama Flora's Family? Mama Flora's Family. She's in that one.
Of course, autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman. Sounder.
Yes.
Claudette.
I love the
Green Tomatoes
movie.
Roots.
The scene with her in this movie, y'all, was on like top of my list. Like
so powerful.
Right on together. Okay. What iconic sitcom did Jackie Harry play in?
227.
227.
I was hoping nobody said
No
sister.
place like home.
I was hoping y'all didn't say sister. That's why I was like, somebody better say 227. All right. So
I tell you what, Chris, I do miss being on the halls of BO and calling out to Mary. Mary.
Oh yeah.
Every single time I hit the case management hall.
Right. So here's the last one. All right. Coming to America, the sequel is premiering in March, right?
So excited.
And this is with Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy is reprising his role. What movie did Robin Givens play in with Eddie Murphy?
Boomerang.
Boomerang.
Correct. Y'all know I love
Did she have like some ugly feet or something, ugly toes or
That's
something?
right.
Yes.
No, that was
her toes weren't ugly.
Okay. Wait. Okay, I'm getting them mixed up.
Yeah. The girl from Wait Till They Say had ugly feet. Yeah.
That's right.
Oh,
Yes.
sure was. Yeah.
It was Layla Rashawn.
Layla Rashad, yeah.
I've thoroughly enjoyed this talk. We are now at 1 hour and 36 minutes. And I know folks
Oh my
got to eat
goodness.
dinner and do all kinds of things. But I want to thank T. Marie, Tiffany Pullum, Katrina Brown, Joshua Glenn, Gina Melisham, Sydney Duncan. I want to thank you guys so much for joining in. Please continue to support the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute, Birmingham Mayor's Outreach, Sidewalk Film Festival. Donate to all of those causes. Happy Black History Month, everybody. And
Chris, don't forget to thank everybody watching too. All these folks with good comments.
Thank y'all so much for your comments and watching. We hope y'all enjoyed it. I think for all of us, it was a movie that we all feel very passionate about. So I hope you guys enjoyed the talk. I hope that I wasn't too crazy with my stuff, but I'm kind of all
Also, if you want to watch it, where to watch it?
And yes,
Yeah.
if you would like to watch The Women of Brewster Place, it is on Amazon Prime. You can rent it for $3.99. You have 48 hours to watch it because I rented it 2 nights ago. All right. So
You also you also can watch it on YouTube for $3.99. Or if you have a Roku television, the Roku channel app will let you watch it for free.
Yeah.
It is free.
I didn't know that. I have a Roku.
I wish I had known that.
It's completely free on the Roku app.
Yes.
That's okay because I know it went under new rights in 2012, so they get the royalties.
Right. Well, thank y'all again, Steve Regal. Thank you, and all of Katrina's friends for typing in stuff. Y'all have a great Thursday and happy Black History Month. Thank y'all. Peace.
Bye.
Bye.